The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
And now, it's time for Radio Jobline with your host, Scott Possessor, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio.
Welcome, everybody. It must be Saturday afternoon from 2 to 3 p.m., or it might be Wednesday night from 9 to 10 p.m. We're on twice a week to talk about your job, your field, your industry, to break down the talent pools, look at the workplace, look at HR issues. We've been doing this for 36 years or so, carrying the torch for all the job hunters out there and all the people who want to be successful. Today we have a fabulous guest, someone that comes on quarterly, is actually a great friend and does a fantastic job for us, giving us something called the CEO Confidence Index, which I'll let him explain, but it certainly gives us, it's almost like a ninth economic indicator in my mind, the way I look at it.
That's a good example.
Let me tell you about Jeff Oak. Jeff is a Vistage chair, which means that he has the privilege of working with Long Island CEOs and business owners who are hungry, humble, and smart, and who want to strengthen their companies, families, and communities. Jeff is an executive coach, leadership consultant, and trusted advisor with 30 years of experience leading small, medium, and large companies. Vistage Worldwide, the company he works for, was founded 65 years ago and has 45,000 members in 35 countries. It's the oldest and largest organization for CEOs of small to mid-sized companies. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic, Vistage members' companies grew their annual revenue by 4.6%, while non-member companies saw revenue decline by 4.7%, according to a study of Dun & Bradstreet data. Very interesting. Created in 2003, the Vistage CEO Confidence Index, which is what we're going to talk about today, has grown to be the largest and most comprehensive report of the opinions and projections from CEOs of small to mid-sized businesses, a trusted barometer for the economic outlook of our nation's small business leaders on topics such as economic sentiment, employment, capital expenditures, and revenue and profit expectations of small and mid-sized businesses. Analysis demonstrates that the index is a leading indicator of the U.S. Industrial Production Index 9 months in advance. Vistage partners with the Wall Street Journal on a quarterly report. Jeff is also recruiting high-performance CEOs, small business owners, and key executives for his peer advisory boards that he leads. If you wish to nominate a high-performing business leader for consideration, call Jeff directly. Reach out to him on LinkedIn or jeff.oak@vistagechair.com. We'll give those numbers a couple of times during the show. Phone number 703-475-8539. Jeff chairs 3 separate peer advisory groups. CEOs of companies with 50 to 1,000 employees, owner-operators of companies with 5 to 50, and C-level executives in companies of all sizes. Welcome, Jeff.
Great to be here, Scott.
Great to have you. And the information you've been providing to us this last year or 18 months or so,
yes,
has been invaluable. And as I said in the open, it's really giving us a barometer of economic trends 9 months in advance, which is very cool. And we appreciate that. I think if we're still the only outlet that broadcasts this information, is that right?
Certainly the first one to get the news out to the general public. Mm-hmm. In social media, for sure.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the organization first, set it up, and then how they came up with the Confidence Index, what we're hoping to find, and then let's talk about the data.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Vistage has been around for over 65 years, and our business model really has not, the core business model has not changed. It is to help high-performing CEOs step away from the day-to-day, connect with other CEOs, and get outside perspectives. That's the fundamental model. I am the chair. We describe these groups as peer advisory boards, and we treat them like a board meeting. Mm-hmm. My role is called the chair. It essentially means that I facilitate those monthly in-person meetings of Long Island business owners, 12 to 16, so it's quite intimate. Mm-hmm. No holds barred. Nothing is off the table. We provide a safe space for CEOs to really talk about their most pressing opportunities and challenges.
Okay. And I attended a
Yes, you
meeting
did. Yeah.
by your invitation and enjoyed it very much. I
Yes.
talked about staffing at the time.
Sure.
And got to know the guys.
Yes.
A couple
And
of them-
gals.
Yeah, and gals. A couple of them wore shorts. You know,
Yeah.
they were very relaxed, casual, down to earth,
Yeah.
really good people.
Yeah.
And that must be fun to work with, people of that have that much authority and responsibility and power.
Yeah.
But they're down to earth people. They're not the jerks that you see in the media that are doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. CEOs are people too.
Right. Right.
And it's a great group of individuals. I appreciate so much. They are truly, small business owners are truly the heroes of the U.S. economy. Mm-hmm. I love the work. I love the members. I love my groups. It's extraordinarily gratifying. And to see the progress and growth, exponential growth in many instances, and transformation of these leaders is just a real privilege.
Yeah. I remember 12, 15 months ago, we talked a lot about one of the issues that was on the minds of CEOs, which is remote work.
Yes.
I remember talking about that. And now that's passé already. People stop talking about it. It's hybrid or it's not.
Some are still wrestling with it, but yeah.
They can wrestle with it. But that was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
That's sort of the point we were making about it being 9 months of a sort of a forecast. So tell us what this quarter's data looks like, and then we'll talk about what it means.
Sure. And I'll say a word. The CEO Confidence Index that we put together has been around for over 20 years. It's the as I think you mentioned, it's the oldest and largest survey of CEO sentiment. So this is what CEOs are actually thinking and feeling about the economy. And the way I would describe this month's data, that I like to bring in a very simple explanation and then dig into the details. And the way I would describe what this data is saying is that the economy is not swimming, but it's not drowning.
Okay. Right.
So that can describe a 4-year-old in a pool, but it also can describe wavering CEO confidence. So why do I say that? Two sets of perspectives. The first is that CEO confidence dipped in the current quarter after 4 consecutive quarters of increase. Mm-hmm. So why is that? CEOs are still trying to manage inflation and interest rates. Mm-hmm. It looks like the Fed might be going in the direction that we hope in the future, but CEOs are still struggling with the economic implications of that. In this quarter's data, it shows that revenue and profitability rose a little bit, but future investments in hiring dropped a little. So hard to get a clear picture there. It's both the tale of two cities, good news and bad news. With the general election coming in November, politicians and media are ramping up the rhetoric on both sides of the aisle, distorting and amplifying economic data for their advantage. And it's important for CEOs to try to filter the political noise and remain vigilant in working their company, leading their company. All of those things that I've just mentioned show the not exactly swimming part of the economy.
Right.
The other tale, the other city, the other story is that CEOs are not just treading water. They're trying to improve productivity. 4 examples of this, and I'm going to dig in a little bit more on the first one, but I'm just going to touch on it here, is AI and automation.
Right.
CEOs, more and more CEOs are putting their toes in the water or much further, or going all in on AI. And allowing their employees to focus on complex value-added activities and have repetitive stuff, AI take care of that. We see that employees, based on this data, are enhancing training and development. They're trying to upskill the workforce through continuous training and develop, and the long-term benefit of that is huge in the economy when CEOs do that. CEOs are streamlining processes. They're implementing new technology. They're eliminating inefficiencies. I have several members of my CEO groups who are implementing ERP systems, CRM or customer relationship management systems, in tools. They're putting in software project management. So CEOs are implementing new technologies to streamline. And they're focused on improving employee engagement and culture. There's a realization by many, many CEOs about the importance of building a positive and engaging workplace culture. So the economy's not swimming. The data is very mixed. But CEOs are not drowning. At least this is what our data shows.
Look, I have a couple of pet peeves about this. The one thing that really bothers me is the stock market overreaction to things. I mean, I've always felt this way. This is not new. I've been complaining and whining about it for decades, since I started in this business a long time ago. When the jobs report came in the month before last, and it was 120,000 jobs were created, everybody went bananas. Yeah. I mean, bananas. The stock market dropped by what, 2,000 points? Over the course of a week or 10 days? Yeah. It's thankfully come back, but why does that happen? No, that's number one pet peeve. Number two, why do you see an article? You could see four, like my news feed every morning. I read, that's how I get ready for work. And I'll see 3 or 4 articles that say, hey, the economy's okay. Don't panic. Everything's fine. It's basically following the script, that Powell set up. We're going to lower interest rates in September, all that great stuff. And then you'll see an article out of nowhere by a reputable person. It says guaranteed recession 2025. Guaranteed, no way around it. So, but what makes your head spin is that every other pundit is saying, no, it's not.
Yeah. I think that's a great example. And this is the case all the time, and most especially in general election cycles, general election years. Politicians in the media are ramping up the rhetoric. And there is, on both sides, as I mentioned, distorting and amplifying economic data to suit whatever message they're trying to get across. What we try to do, and frankly, what the CEO Confidence Index tries to do, is take a breath and let's just look at what the data are saying. This is what CEOs who are running companies day to day, what they're observing, the kinds of decisions they're making, the sorts of things that they're thinking about, and really how they're feeling, how confident they're feeling in their own companies and in the economy at large. So our survey is actually an effort to cut through precisely the kind of exaggerations that are often in the media. Right.
And that's a very good way of putting it, exaggerations.
Yeah. With one thing I'd say about the recession, and I'm going to say this in a guarded way, when you look at the data, the threat of a broad recession seems to have passed. I'm not going to say definitively that it has. I'm not going to put any guarantees or anything around that, but the evidence seems to suggest that a broad-based recession is not likely to happen. And that's different than what a lot of people are going to say. They're going to say, yes, it is, or no, it isn't.
Yeah.
I'm just, I think the data is nuanced, and I think comments on that data needs to be nuanced.
Well, we know the same person who I believe is in one of your groups, Michael Hartzman.
Yeah.
He's a regular here on Radio Jobline, and he went on a limb the last time he was here and said, we are not having a recession. So let me say it.
Okay.
It's done.
Good.
It's done. And then the jobs report came out a couple of weeks later and wasn't good, and the stock market overreacted, and everybody was using the R word. And so I haven't had Michael back on the show yet, but I'm looking forward to his reaction to that.
Well, I'd put a lot of stock in what Michael says. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's say we don't have this recession. Things are going according to plan, but there's still this preoccupation with AI.
Yes. So every quarter, our survey focuses on a particular area that the data seems to be pointing to, and this is where my trifecta: the what, the so what, and the now what.
Right.
The what is the data. The so what is what's the data saying. What does it mean? And the now what is, what do we do with the data? How do we act on it? And we have a dedicated research office in Vistage that looks at the data, studies it, dices it every different one way and the other. And they tease out from the data certain focus areas. And the area of focus in this quarter, as you indicated, relates to artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple things that I want to highlight. First, the AI is no longer the future. It's the present, mm-hmm. And it's evolving quickly. We all live in an AI-powered world. And just as we learn to reside in the digital space, think about Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint. When those, you and I are old enough to remember when those software programs first came out, mm-hmm. They were very impactful on automating certain common tasks. Mm-hmm. Now we just take those things for granted. But if we think back, there was a time where we were adapting to that. Now mm-hmm. it's second nature. Mm-hmm. And I think a similar dynamic is unfolding in AI, and we need to be mindful of that. Leaders who embrace AI ahead of their competitors are going to gain an advantage mm-hmm. as the next wave of technology-powered productivity and innovation takes hold. Mm-hmm. That seems to me is a fact. A second thing that the data shows us is that more and more CEOs are turning their attention to AI. It is still not a majority, but it's increased steadily over recent months and quarters. 30% of CEOs are increasing their financial investments in AI. Mm-hmm. But not every business and not every function. There are certain functions that I'm going to touch on in a moment that lend themselves more to AI. Most knowledge workers, which is a huge swath of the economy, they're already using AI, even if their employers or their organizations aren't. Mm-hmm. The individuals are. Mm-hmm. They're just finding ways to get stuff done mm-hmm. more efficiently using AI. And in many cases, they're incorporating AI really ahead of their respective organizations. Let me talk about some of the areas where we see the increasing use and appreciation for AI. Almost half of sales and marketing efforts in the economy, according to our data, is deploying AI in some form or fashion. Things like repetitive tasks like digital marketing, customer segmentation, personalizing content to the audience, creating content, predictive analytics, scoring leads. You were in the lead generation business. Mm-hmm. Some leads, they're scored based on the likelihood of responding, scoring that, forecasting sales, mm-hmm. optimizing pricing. These are all repetitive tasks that utilize large quantities of data, and that's where AI is most helpful. Mm-hmm. The next most frequent area is in operational efficiency. And I already mentioned, think about how much Microsoft Word and Excel, how that automated how we present data and information. AI is automating tasks.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll just throw in as sort of an interest note. I remember Microsoft Word 1.05, and you could put it into your computer, but what if you wanted to write a document? You had to spell check it by removing the disk, putting in a spell check disk, because there was no hard drive and it had a 512K memory. Yeah. So if your document was more than 512K, you were in bad shape anyway. Yeah. But that's how we are right now with AI. We're at the very beginning of what it can do. Think about how Microsoft Word is so much more advanced than it was 40 years ago when it came out.
And how many more people use it routinely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see a similar progression with AI. It's a new technology, just like Word and Excel and PowerPoint were new technologies. It's hard at first. People will become more accustomed to it. They'll find the use cases that work for them. Mm-hmm. And I think there will be, over time, increasing comfort.
Yeah. I mean, I love AI because I write a column, and sometimes I'm struggling for an idea or I get like writer's block, and I'll say, well, Gemini, what are the 7 biggest problems job hunters face?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it'll give me something I didn't think of.
Yeah.
And then wham, I'm able to write the article.
Yeah.
But so it's very, very valuable, even as individuals are using it before it's even been completely adopted by the commercial end of the company.
Exactly. Just a research tool. There was a time when, a long, long time ago, where if we were looking for a different word, we went to a thesaurus.
Right.
I still have those hard copy thesauruses.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go on Google and also on AI for those things. So certainly research is one area.
Okay, we got to take a short break.
Okay.
You listen to Radio Jobline with Scott Possessor, and my guest today is Jeff Oak, a fabulous guy, and really got information that no one else has, and I call it the 9th economic indicator. If you would like to be on Radio Jobline, write to me, Scott P. 118@gmail.com. You should also connect with me on LinkedIn, because all of the Radio Joblines, once they air here on the radio station, are posted on my LinkedIn account. So connect with me, PASSESER. We have a commercial break coming up. Stay with us. We'll be back.
Sand and stone. May the four winds blow you safely home. Roll away into.
And now, welcome back to Radio Jobline with your host, Scott Possessor, right here on LI News Radio.
Welcome back to Radio Jobline. You're listening to Scott Possessor speaking to Jeff Oak about the Consumer Confidence Index put out by Vistage International, a fabulous company. Jeff is a regular guest here on Radio Jobline, and we appreciate all of his appearances, telling us, really giving us a picture of almost 9 months down the road of what CEOs are thinking and what actions should be taken based on what CEOs are thinking at this particular time. Jeff, a lot of people are worried about their jobs. You were talking about AI. And I think, people that have a complex job, that have multifaceted aspects of their role, they're not as worried, because it's harder to replace them.
Sure.
But people that do one thing, they're a little bit more concerned.
Sure.
If you think of the old key puncher, or something there are job markets that have fallen out a long time ago, but there are current job markets right now where AI is a threat.
Sure.
So allay people's fears if you can.
Sure. So I think I'm going to back into that question by talking about what AI is really good at. Mm-hmm. What AI is really good at is repetitive tasks where there is not necessarily a lot of independent thinking. Mm-hmm. AI is also good at amassing huge quantities of data, organizing it, and make sense of it. So research, for example, we were talking about that before the break. Mm-hmm. And identifying anomalies in the data. So it's really good at those things. So certainly jobs that people do that involve those kinds of things, repetitive tasks where there's not a lot of independent judgment, organizing data, collecting large volumes of data, mm-hmm. organizing that, formatting it, etc. I sometimes hear people say, am I going to lose my job to AI? And there certainly are examples such as the kinds of jobs that involve the tasks that I just described to you. Mm-hmm. But what I want to say that's an effort both to reassure people in the face of irrational fears, but also put a little fire under people to develop themselves. You're probably not going to lose your job to AI unless you're in a role that is exclusively repetitive tasks. One-dimensional. You're probably not going to lose your job to AI, but you could lose it to someone who knows how to use AI better. Mm. And so my counsel to all leaders and especially those who might be in the job market is to really play around with AI, get used to it, find out ways that it can help you be more efficient and effective in your work. I think the organizational analog of what I just said, that you probably won't lose your job to AI, but you could lose it to someone who knows how to use AI better. For companies, you're probably not going to lose customers to AI, but you could very well lose them to a competitor better capitalizing on AI.
Let's do a quick sidebar.
Yeah.
So let's talk about sales.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone dreads the initial sales call.
Yep.
So what if AI was programmed with the perfect voice and the perfect pitch and the perfect tonality and the perfect open and the perfect amount of data, and actually you're getting a call from AI and you don't even know it because it can answer, right? I mean, I actually speak to my AI and he answers me.
Yep.
So I even had a discussion with Gemini,
Yep.
right? And I said, are you going to remember this conversation 6 months from now? He said, I don't know. He said, but why don't you test me? Put a mark in your calendar to bring up this subject, and let's see if I remember it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sitting there talking to it.
Yeah.
So why couldn't it do sales, for example? Why couldn't it open the door, and then let the account executive get in there and make the sale?
Well, I suppose there are certain kinds of sales where it could do that. Where I'm seeing AI, and I'm hearing from my CEOs, AI can be very useful, is to customize messaging for certain particular segments. You're in the sales related business, and you have different kinds of candidates, right? You have different kinds of roles, different kind of motives, different kinds of things that people are looking for. And you because you're an experienced recruiter, you have the art of talking with someone and touching on the things that are important to them or that will motivate them. Certainly AI could gather large swaths of data, and if you were to provide a particular profile in terms of that will give specificity around what customer segment this person is from, and what are the things I might say or include in some kind of message that would appeal to that person, I think AI can be very powerful in that regard. One of the interesting things about AI on the customer side, and I was talking with one of my members who's in the auto industry, and people are doing something like 70 or 80% of their research before they walk into the showroom. Previously, they did, 20% of their research, and then they'd get the rest of the picture in the showroom. People are doing that research beforehand, and the conversations in many instances are much more succinct. They're different kinds of they're a different kind of conversation. So certainly customer segmentation and the customization of scripts that are likely to be more successful is absolutely a use case that we are seeing as it relates to AI.
So one of the biggest job market, one of the biggest talent pools in the world is customer service.
Yep.
And there's a funny commercial on TV about, I forgot the actress's name, where she's speaking to a person, but she says, how do I know you're not AI?
Yeah.
And then the person says, how do I know you're not AI? so I think customer service could actually be good.
Yes.
Because it would be friendly. It would be upbeat. It would speak great English. It would, there'd be no issues that you might normally have.
Yes.
And those jobs could then be, done away with, a little bit. So I worry about big sectors of the workplace like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as it relates to customer service, yes, I think there are certain kinds of problems, certain kinds of issues where you could get a quicker solution by understanding more rapidly what the issue is. And I'm not in the customer service business directly. I'm imagining, depending on your industry, that there are certain levels of customer service where there's a certain artfulness and a certain level of emotional intelligence that's going to really help move an unhappy customer over to the neutral or maybe even positive side with some good old human empathy and listening. But to be sure, there are repetitive tasks and research related tasks in the sales and the customer service area where AI could be useful. I guess my counsel to your members would be not to bring a mindset of fear as it relates to AI, but a mindset of opportunity and learning. Okay, how can AI help me do my job more effectively? How can I leverage it in my work to get better outcomes in a more efficient manner? It's
not always going to hurt someone's job, but it can provide operational efficiency. So
yes.
If the first tier customer service call is really quite easy. So I wanted to let you know I can't find my lamp.
Yep.
AI can handle that.
Yep.
But then they have to escalate it. So maybe you're now going to get better service because the call's been directed to someone
Correct.
who really knows about
Correct.
that subject.
Correct.
And has all the answers
Yes.
you're looking for. So I do see it. I'm trying to agree with you that you're not going to lose your job, but you could have more efficiency in
yes.
your job.
Yeah, there's absolutely a certain narrowing in customer service. For the person comes in and all you know is that they're unhappy.
That's right.
And then you ask a few questions and it narrows down the options. You rule out certain things. Okay, we know it's not these 3 things. It's one of these 2 things. And there's a narrowing and a really skilled customer service person will ask the right questions to find out precisely what the issue is.
And diffuse the situation.
And get them someone who can help them.
Right.
And so absolutely, that's an example of taking data, narrowing that down to really understand more specifically what's happening. Old-fashioned customer service, the narrowing happens by a person asking questions. In an AI world, some of those initial questions and narrowing could very well be AI.
I don't like what happened 20, 25 years ago that still goes on today where customer service people are located overseas.
Yeah.
Okay. So they literally outsourced those jobs and really tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs were outsourced. And that cost the American economy, as far as I'm concerned. Now, a lot, from what I understand, of that customer service has come back to the United States, and companies are taking it more seriously. And they're having people that really speak well and are educated and really know the products rather than just reading off a script.
Yeah, your comment brings something up for me, and that is poorly executed AI not only does not optimize, but it degrades certain experiences. So I'm sure you've had the experience of an AI voice on the phone. Maybe it's customer service or some other area. And the questions are poorly constructed, or they're not really focusing on what I'm dealing with. And it increases my frustration, just like if you have an ineffective customer service person and they ask lousy questions, or they don't listen, or they don't direct you in the proper manner. So there's some AI, if it's not trained to do its job well, can actually diminish the customer experience.
Yeah, I think we both agree that it might be good for that first round call, to direct you to someone else, but you do try using AI for something beyond that, and you're going to have an irate customer the same way you would if you had someone overseas that didn't speak good English.
Yes.
So is it really helping?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes.
The other thing that I think we talked briefly about last time, and let's just touch on it, is guardrails. I'm a little worried about what AI can do. And I'm worried that bad actors are going to get a hold of it and, crash the banking system or do something worse. I'm like, I don't even want to think about it. I mean, I saw Terminator.
Sure. Yeah, no, certainly any technology or any resource can be harnessed in a positive direction and it can be harnessed in a negative direction. What your comment brings up for me, Scott, is the proliferation and increasing sophistication of cybersecurity related issues.
Yeah.
Used to be you could spot the inquiries on email a mile away because there was misspellings and it was poorly constructed. But just as our defenses against cybersecurity are becoming more sophisticated, so also the bad guys are becoming more sophisticated. And it's becoming, this is just my own personal experience, it's becoming increasingly more tricky to spot stuff that's either malware or phishing.
Right. So these socially engineered emails that we receive that get us to click where we're not supposed to, they have been increasing in graphics. They're stealing the logos of the companies they're pretending to be. But you can always tell something's wrong if the email address that sent it to you is, if there's anything wrong with that.
Yep.
If it doesn't come from Microsoft.com, it's not coming from Microsoft.
Right.
So you got to keep an eye on that. That's one big tip. But I do find there's confusion about what's real and what's not real. And maybe AI could be used as a better detector of an email that you shouldn't be reading.
Sure. That's one way that it could be harnessed for good,
right,
as it relates to
that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah.
That's what I'm waiting for. I want someone to say, show me how it benefits me and I'll buy it.
Yeah, I would expect, in fact, I'm very confident that as it relates to cyber, as we're talking about, that the cyber prevention companies, the good guys that are trying to protect us all, are leveraging AI to a maximum extent, because the bad guys are leveraging it.
Yeah, I'd like to see that built into my computer system at the office, where I know somebody's safeguarding me, and it's not just a wall; it's an artificial intelligent being almost watching out for us.
Yeah. Certainly, I think credit cards might be an example of that. So. I'm sure you've had on a credit card where that you get fraud alerts. There's an irregular pattern of purchasing. It may be because you're traveling, or maybe because you're just going into some stores that you don't normally go to. You get a little alert. Hey, we have a concern or question about a recent purchase, and please call us before we pay this bill. That's not a bunch of people who are reading paper. There's a lot of technology involved in that kind of detection. That's probably an example where AI has been used for a while, I would imagine.
Okay, so we should really move on to how Vistage really benefits companies, and why people should join one of your groups, and how do they do that, and all that. Sure.
So as I mentioned, I lead before the show. I lead 3 groups. All of these are in the small and mid-sized company space. The first one is for companies between 50 and 1,000 employees. The second group is for companies between 5 and 50 employees. And the third group that I'm launching that I want to focus on in response to your question are C-level executives in companies of all sizes. These are the chief fill in the blanks, chief financial officers, chief operating officers, chief human resources, et cetera. I'm launching one of these groups because of a basic insight that I've learned from my CEOs. Leadership is a constant climb, and the weight of that climb falls on my CEO's shoulders, and it never lets up. What does that weight look like? CEOs are accountable, but a lot of times they don't have control over a whole bunch of stuff that they're responsible for. They're trying to lead their organization into the future, but they're up to their eyeballs in the day-to-day. They got to bring their A game and perform every day, even as market conditions keep changing. And when I reflected on the challenges that my CEOs are dealing with, it occurred to me that they need the absolute best leadership team supporting them in order to be effective. And that's what this particular program does. It helps CEOs strengthen their bench. It helps them develop their trusted advisors. The benefit to the CEO is it prepares their key leaders for whatever role they're in or whatever role they're moving into. It strengthens alignment around strategy. It helps improve their execution and performance. It really helps the CEO get better outcomes.
And succession planning.
Exactly. Succession planning is huge. The benefit to the key executives is that it helps them become better leaders, better decision makers. It prepares them for their next role. It expands their toolkit so they can be of better and deeper service to the company, so that they can become both more competent leaders and more confident leaders.
So is this like training? Would you call it training?
It's a peer advisory group, so it follows the same principles. It's a non-competing model, so we don't have two people from the same industry in the same group because we want to create a climate where nothing is off the table and people can talk about whatever they're dealing with. And it's about creating a safe space where people both support each other and challenge each other. There's a wonderful thing that happens in peer groups, and that is a certain irreverence. People are not respective of your title because they have the same title.
Right.
So they're not going to, if someone's blowing smoke or has a flawed assumption or a blind spot, the person next to them is just going to call it. It's going to name it. We have a phrase in Vistage that we call carefrontation.
Right.
We create an environment of caring.
Right.
And within that context, we confront each other with tough questions that nobody else is asking them, with things that challenge their perspective.
It sounds all fabulous. Now, we're running out of time. Give people a website or some way to get involved if they're interested.
You can reach me on LinkedIn, Jeff Oak, Jeff, Oak, just like the tree. The Vistage website is vistage.com, VISTAGE. .com, and people can search for me there. And my phone number, my email is jeff.oak@vistagechair, one word, jeff.oak@vistagechair.com.
Okay, fantastic. Jeff, thank you so much for doing it again.
It's always my pleasure, Scott. This is always so much fun.
You bring me the data, you give me the what's next, and how do we use it and all that stuff, and I think it's fabulous.
Hope it helps your listeners.
It really does. It really does. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, Scott.
All right. If you want to be on Radio Jobline, write to me, scottp118@gmail.com. Happy to have you or your idea on the program. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn, because if you do, you'll see in your newsfeed all of the radio job lines. Once they air here on the radio station, they're posted on LinkedIn. So you can make a library, and they're all on SoundCloud forever. So use them. They'll help you. Have a great week, everybody. Happy hunting.
Roll away the dew. Roll away.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.